Hello and welcome to Bulletin Bytes, your podcast from Bulletin Box. I'm your host, Thivo, and I bring you people from different walks of life to talk about life. In the last few weeks, we've seen some heartbreaking images of people trying to flee Afghanistan towards a better life and towards their freedom. Why is freedom so important to human beings? Today, we are talking about freedom, but in terms of starting up a new venture for themselves. We have Julia Kuemper with us, who is from Germany. She's founded a company called Vodcast, and she is a CEO of a company called Venture Villa. She, with her political science degree, believes in creating a much more diverse and a sustainable environment to create new ventures and to break the barriers that stop people from exercising that freedom. Welcome, Julia.
Thanks a lot. Happy to be here.
I hope the introduction did justice to what all you do in your venture.
Yeah. It was a great introduction. I'm really proud to hear what you're saying about me.
No, because it is very important. We've had so many startups around us. Today is a very, very conducive environment to start up their own ventures, people. But we find it so difficult with the bureaucracy in place, with the capitalism and the old ways of working in place. How does one go about doing and breaking those barriers to create a world for themselves where they feel free to exercise their rights and their freedom? But before we start that, I want to understand from you your background. What prompted you to start this venture?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so you mentioned my political degrees background. So I started from a not typical startup background, I would say. And what I've learned there and what I've studied there was all about participation. So how to bring people to participate in civil society, for example, and what does it mean? And coming from that point of view, you can imagine how frustrated I was joining the startup system and having only a few elite people participating in this system. So, and I was thinking about, okay, how can I open up the system and to help people participate and lower barriers? And that was the first step at Venture Villa, where we do guide startups in a traditional way, like preparing them for venture capital, an existing system where you have to fit in, but also by fitting in, not to lose yourself. And then show ways how you, as not the typical founder, can make your way through it. So that was something where we started with Venture Villa 2 years ago. And what we have done, it sounds like a teeny step, but we gave ourselves a mission to become a safer space for startups. So anyone who felt discriminated by the system or had experience regarding discrimination and sexism, for example, now knew that there is even one organization, Venture Villa, taking care and accounting and believing and respecting these experiences. So that is something you can do in the system with little things. And the other one I then decided to do was taking a deeper or closer look on why people do not found. So at Venture Villa, you're focusing on people who decided to found their company and started already.
So they already have an idea. They already have a plan on paper.
Right. They have an idea, they have a team, and they decided to step in now and to found their company or the venture. And then there was my question again, okay, that is also just a minority of people. What is about the rest?
Yes.
And then asked 2 years, a lot of people, why they don't found. And what is the reason why they do not take the next step? Because they do have an idea, they are really creative people. And what comes up a lot was about security. It's all security issues, right? So
there is no fallback option.
Yeah, right. Perfectly. And exactly this no fallback option gets more dramatic and has more impact on your decision when you're coming from a background with no other fallback options. For example, if you're a white male privileged one, or even a female white privileged one,
Right.
it's much more easier to fail, because failure in this case can be turned up as a success, learning process, whatever, because you have mommy and daddy paying, or you have the
Right.
network from university giving you the next job. So it's not that bad. But if you're coming from not privileged circumstances, it's a much more greater, huger step you have to do this all without fallback options, right? Because you don't have this fallback options. And I think that is the main problem, that a lot of people deny this missing fallback options.
Right. No, I know. I remember when I was in my mid-20s, and all my friends, a lot of my friends have founded really good ideas, and they've gone ahead with that ideas, and I had a few. And I would always talk to my brother about it. But again, I don't come from a very secure financial background. So I never went ahead with those ideas. And well, now I know who to go to and talk to if I do plan to start this. But before we go further into the details of what exactly Venture Villa and Venture does, I want to understand, as somebody who is in a Western white society. I need to tell my audience, Julia is in Germany right now. So as somebody who's in a Western white society, how do you say the system discriminates between sexes? Because you did speak about people being discriminated against their sex, their gender. So just throw some light on that.
Well, it starts with, again, tiny things called microaggressions. And that can just be the question like, who's taking care about your children? Because no man will be asked that question. That is the small ones. And the biggest ones are, for example, gender pay gap. What we also see at venture capital. So even if the rounds raised by women are in quantity are raising the quality, so the amount of money getting to women is not. So so there are difference in between.
So the people investing into their ventures are either very skeptical of how much involved they would be, because there's a family that they have to take care of, and they cannot fathom the scenario where the woman would be able to actually keep these two things quite separate.
For example, and in Germany, there's a law that you are not allowed to ask a potential employee about her family planning. But in venture capital, you're allowed to ask anything and everything. So you can ask the women, what are your plans regarding family? Are you giving birth in the next 2 years or whatever? And that's something that will never be asked a man, for example.
Right.
There are some small things, right? But there are definitely things, content warning, going in the direction of sexual abuse, starting from let's meet again naked to, if we want to have that money, you have to be really nice to me, kind of.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, yeah. So as a part of your venture, you can I ask this, like, if you already have somebody who has a great idea and has a great idea on paper and the planning on paper, and you have somebody who's a venture capitalist and is willing to invest money but is looking for a venture to invest, do you also work as a bridge between these two parties?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I'm never able to promise something, but what I can do is just open doors. And that is one of the main restrictions in this system itself, and why we are calling systems so it's a discriminating system, because opening doors is really strict. So
not everybody is invited to every room.
Right. So what I can do is, using my privilege, being a white person, and opening doors. and especially in Germany, opening doors to German investors because they all have a huge bias regarding everything not German. Yeah.
Well, we I think we all do. We all have a preference to things and the cultures that we are more familiar with. But I think that's a great idea that you went ahead with, like because like we were discussing that I as a non-white, non-German person would not be invited to those rooms. But if I have you who has faith in my venture, I would be allowed to maybe, step into those rooms and then maybe start talking to them about it. Julia, I want to talk to you about, you've spoken about lowering barriers for different people who want to start their own venture. In your past experience of the last 2 years, what kind of barriers have you seen in terms of legal, social, economic barriers that people have faced, and how you and your team has been able to lower those barriers for them?
Yeah, the first one we've already mentioned, it's just closed doors. So lacking of networks, being not at the right university to have the right network or the right degree. And a lot of these barriers are not proven by facts. It's just the gut feeling of the people decision making.
Right.
So what we can do to lower these barriers at a really meta level, let's put it that way, is just talk about it. And always pointing out, for example, if you see pictures of events or whatever, just saying, oh, you see, only white male. And that's the first step, right?
Yeah.
To make people aware of that they are a closed system with a lot of barriers. The second one is more concrete legal barriers. For example, in Germany, you are not allowed to found a company if you don't have the right visa status or passport. So what we decided with Ventrepreneurs to do is, it's easy to get your visa status to be employed. So what we're doing is we employ people to follow their ideas and to found their companies inside our company. So this legal barrier of the visa status doesn't matter. So you can really fast set up your company and this legal barrier doesn't exist for you. Or other way around, we will help you to overcome so that you can be in the future the owner of your company. Right. But in the first step, just it's kind of buying time, because these visa processes, for example, are taking so much time, more than 12, 25 months. And that's where we are stepping in and saying, okay, we employ you to follow your idea. Disclaimer, we just started this year. So that's what we are planning to do from January next year on. Right. At the moment, we are fundraising ourselves, trying to convince venture capital to give us money to do so. But yeah, that's the plan, to lower this legal barriers. What we also experience is people coming from unemployment do really face problems on, I wouldn't call it legal, but bureaucratic barriers. That's typical for German too, because you have some social system to get money for your minimum of life. Right. And on paper, you do have the option to get money for a first step into your venture. But in reality, this money never is permitted. So at the moment, we are trying to figure out why. And there's also the possibility to employ these people and to have them make the next steps, because besides that bureaucratic barriers, there's something happening to you when you are not employed for many years. You're losing structure. You're losing waking up, do your daily business and have some kind of sense in your life. And if you're trying to start a company, you have to come back to the structured living with sense of life, and now getting into this business or doing the switch to the business kind of sense, So, yeah.
So,
and then,
the last one that you spoke about is it's more like personal barrier. Like, because I haven't been in the workforce for this long, I don't know how the workforce works anymore and what I need to put out there to get more attention towards my venture.
Yeah, right. And on a personal level, not able to structure yourself.
Not able to structure yourself, right?
If your goal is to reach 20 investors, you're not able to structure yourself in terms like, okay, I have to write an email for that one to get in contact, and to when do I have to do that as soon as possible because time's running, right?
Right.
And that is something that's coming up really often. So it's
lovely. So I mean, it's a great service because, like I said, coming from somebody who already had an idea at one point in time, and I absolutely gave that idea up because I did not have somebody to help me and sort of chart out the plan. Because nobody teaches you, unless you go to a very fancy business school, nobody teaches you these ropes of business. Yeah. I mean, I can be creative and have an idea, but that doesn't serve the purpose of putting that idea into the market. Yeah. I just want to hear some positive stories in the last 2 years as a part of being the CEO of Venture Villa, where you've seen a business find a venture capitalist and eventually grow and become a successful business. Do you have some successful stories for us to share?
Well, the first thing I'm always saying is you have to define successful, right?
Right.
So let's put it the way you found
happy stories. Let's call them happy stories.
Right. We do have some, but they are all in an early stage. So if you have in mind that startups do need 10 to 12 years to be successful unicorn, for example, and haven't taken into, let's say, 8 rounds of money raising, so getting money in the company. Our startups are at the moment 3 years old, kind of. So they are really in the beginning.
Right.
So even if they are 3 years old, and you would say 3 years, that's a huge amount of time, right?
Yeah.
And even in the fast startup scene, it's not. So, we do have some performing very well. We do have some not performing so well. But the ones who are successful are the ones who are fitting in changing circumstances. So the ones who are able to succeed, from my perspective, are the ones who are able to adopt to changing circumstances. For example, if you have a worldwide pandemic, and you're in the traveling sector, you have to rethink about your business model. And the ones able to do so, that are the ones who are successful. And I wouldn't put it the way they have raised the most money. I would put it the way they are able to follow their dream, building a company and getting freedom out of that.
Right. Because eventually that's all it boils down to. For my freedom to exercise my creative thoughts and eventually go ahead and make plans based on my understanding of those thoughts. So you spoke about one very important thing is adaptability. In your understanding, a successful business should have adaptability. Do you have any other markers to define a business that would become quote unquote successful in its own words? If you can give me one more idea, what new?
It's really important at the beginning to decide what kind of freedom, in which terms you would like to reach. For example, if you want to have financial freedom,
right,
you should better think twice if you're becoming a venture capital-backed startup. Because when you're a venture capital-backed startup, you have to raise money again and again, right? So you're never getting a calm minute until you've done your exit. So that's fine if you decided to do so. But when you decide to do so, you have to start from the beginning on to be strategic with this goal, especially on your financial plannings.
And be patient with that plan.
Right. And if you're looking more for something like you want to change a bit your own world, you want to have your own company taking care of the next 20 years, having, 50 employees and making the world a better place for them, what's totally fine too. Then you shouldn't think about other ways to grow your company instead of venture capital. So my advice would be from beginning on, decide on what you want to have, on which ways and directions, not only the financial one. And the important thing about this is there's no wrong or right. There's only your own way, right? It's not about what are the others doing. It's about what fits best for me. For example, I'm sidepreneur since 2015, was now my second company, but before so too. And anyone's telling me you have to step in 100%, otherwise it's not the right way. And I'm like, no, it's totally fine. It's my way, right? So you don't have to care about it. It's how I do things.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to have that inner strength to be able to don't care less about the guilty feelings coming around from that.
I think that inner courage, the inner strength that you spoke about is very important.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have that conviction in our own dreams. And that conviction will give us the strength and the courage to go ahead and take that next step and not listen to all the naysayers. Like you said, care less about that. Because it is our dream. What I hear from all that discussion and in our previous chat before this, I also understood that this venture capitalist sort of is a way for you to give back to society and make society a much more diverse, much more accepting place. Why is this so important, Julia, for you? Is it only because of your political science degree, or is it something else?
Well, I think it's rooting deep in me some kind of equality sense. So from my perspective, and definitely formed by my political degree, I truly believe that we are all the same. And coming from a point where we believe in all people are the same and all people are good, we have to think about why do you have some people more money than others, and what about the money rivers and where they are going, and why is money going where money is going and why not. And that is something deeply rooting in me, kind of critical questioning the status quo and coming back to the political degrees about participation.
Right.
So why are people not allowed to participate as human beings? Coming to that point, right? So,
it also sometimes, not as much probably, but I also feel sometimes the bureaucratic rules and divisions in most of our societies were created to help people approach the institutions. The political and the legal institutions that we've created in our societies. The whole idea of bureaucratic ladders were created so that it could help people. But over the years, what we've seen is that these same bureaucratic divisions are deterring people. Instead of inviting, they are filtering people out.
You're definitely right, but you have to keep in mind who designed these organizations.
Right.
In the Western part, it was a white male.
It's the same in India. In a place like India, it was privileged men in their 50s at that point in time who had a certain education, who looked a certain way, who came from deep-rooted pockets.
Right. And so that's the reason why this system is working for them.
Yeah.
But not for the majority of the people.
Right.
So, right. And that's something I would say, I'm privileged, but I do have made a lot of experiences with misogyny, calling my position just or questioning my position just because I'm a woman.
Right.
So I think that is something I'm also experiencing, this sexism and discrimination,
Right.
even if I'm privileged. So, and I do have a lot of empathy. So I can't imagine how it must be for not privileged white people. And taking that into account and reflecting my own privilege can only lead to fight for more equality and freedom. So yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. No, it is amazing how you are going out in the world with your own experience and trying to challenge the same system that gives you the privilege and use that privilege to help somebody else. We need more people like you, Julia, in the world.
Yeah, but that's what we're always saying. We're always saying we need to change the system so when we are successful, entrepreneurs is no longer needed. So that's the plan, exactly, right?
That's beautiful.
Because yeah, but because what you otherwise it would be just tokenism, right? Just doing like it's making money, but not being consequent till the end.
Right.
So yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Julia, before we sign off, do you want to add something else for our audiences to take back and reflect on? Anything that you want to, for people like who are not particularly into venture capital, who are particularly not into startups, but can take back home and maybe reflect upon how they are helping create the system and change the system, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it always has to start by yourself, like me, reflecting on my privilege. It could be possible not reflecting privilege, but probably reflecting how much impact I am allowing others to have on my life. Right. So that was my first step too, to decide on who's allowed to judge me and who's not. And funny, and maybe it's just anecdotal from my mind coming up, but I have never taken care of people judging me dancing alone on the dance floor at the first person at the club or whatever. I've never taken care of that one. So that was the first time I remember that I don't care, right?
Right.
And that is the attitude that helps me a lot to do what I do. And I won't say that it's not hurting me if someone is judging me or calling me out or whatever. But coming back to that point, taking care of myself and asking myself, is this person allowed to judge me? Does he or she knows anything, taking into account where I'm coming from, where I'm now? And the answer, I would say 99% no. Right. And that's what I would suggest to anyone to think about, because that's lowering barriers too.
Yes, exactly. Because we put all those barriers on ourselves, allowing people to pull us down.
Right.
We should, only people who are deeply invested in us. It's the same as venture capitalists. Only somebody who is deeply invested in my venture is allowed to have an opinion about my venture.
True. Right? Knowing all the facts and the history.
Exactly. That is beautiful. Thank you, Julia, for this talk.
Thank you. That was really awesome.
I learned so much about this, and it's like I said, it is much more than just creating a venture and going to the market with it. It's about creating a system and breaking the system, allowing much more voices, much more faces, more ideas to come in and make this a much more diverse, safer world for everybody else.
Right, definitely. Perfectly summarized. Thanks.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much. And we would love to have you back a few years down the line to talk more about entrepreneurs and see how many lives you've touched and changed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And guys, I would leave Julia's LinkedIn details here on Bulletin Box and on Bulletin Bytes. Please go and check her ventures. It's just awe-inspiring. And for more such inspiring talks, do follow us on different social media channels. It's me, Tivo, signing off, and I'll see you again with another such inspiring talk. Bye-bye.